Imagine waking up on a quiet Tuesday morning. There is no alarm clock going off in the dark. There is no stressful commute waiting outside your door. There is no meeting you are required to attend. It is just you, a warm cup of coffee on the porch, and the calm, steady realization that your time now belongs entirely to you. You can spend the day exactly the way you choose. Maybe that means a long walk in the park, planning a road trip across the country, or simply sitting in the quiet with your spouse and having a conversation without rushing anywhere. Here is a question worth thinking about carefully. When you picture that kind of morning, how old are you in that picture? When do you honestly believe that kind of life can become your everyday reality? For most working Americans, that question has a very specific answer, and that answer is age 62. Survey data consistently shows that 62 is the most commonly chosen target retirement age among American workers. It is not random. It is not a guess. There are real, concrete reasons why this particular age carries so much weight in retirement planning conversations across the country. Today, we are going to take a close and honest look at exactly why age 62 holds this significance, what the financial system in the United States actually does when you reach that age, and what hidden obstacles you absolutely must understand and plan around if you want to retire at 62 without putting your financial security at risk. By the end, we will walk through a practical readiness checklist based on 3 clear financial questions you should be able to answer before making this decision. Let us start with the most basic question. Why 62? What is it about this age that makes it the most popular retirement target in the country? The first and most important reason is legal. Under United States federal law, age 62 is the earliest age at which a worker can begin claiming Social Security retirement benefits. According to the Social Security Administration, this is referred to as the early eligibility age. For decades, workers watch a portion of every paycheck they earn get directed into the Social Security system through payroll taxes. Reaching age 62 is the first legal opportunity to begin receiving a return on those contributions. From a psychological standpoint, this feels like a significant moment. The system is now open to you for the first time. That sense of permission, of finally being eligible, carries real emotional weight. But it is not only about the law. It is also about timing relative to health and quality of life. Retirement planning professionals commonly refer to the early years of retirement as the go-go years. This term describes the period when retirees typically still have strong physical health, good mobility, and the energy to pursue activities they may have been putting off for years or even decades. At age 62, most people are physically capable of traveling, staying active, spending meaningful time with grandchildren, and engaging fully in hobbies and interests. The concern many workers have is that if they wait too long, they may reach retirement with enough money, but with diminished health that limits what they can actually do with that time. That is a real and valid concern. Additionally, there is the simple reality of workplace fatigue. By the time most workers reach their early 60s, they have typically been in the workforce for 35 to 40 years. That represents decades of early mornings, commutes, deadlines, workplace stress, and personal sacrifice. The desire to step away from that cycle and redirect energy toward family, personal interests, and personal freedom is entirely understandable. The exhaustion is real. The desire for change is real. The goal of retiring at 62 is not unreasonable. But here is the part that does not get enough attention. The financial system in the United States was not designed to make early retirement easy. In fact, it was specifically structured in ways that create serious financial consequences for workers who claim benefits at 62. Understanding those consequences is essential before making any decision. The first and most significant financial issue involves Social Security benefits and what happens when you claim them before your full retirement age. The Social Security Administration defines full retirement age, commonly abbreviated as FRA, as the age at which a worker becomes entitled to receive 100% of their calculated Social Security retirement benefit. Full retirement age is not 62. It is not 65. For workers born between 1943 and 1954, full retirement age is 66. For workers born in 1955, it is 66 and 2 months. This increases gradually for each subsequent birth year. For workers born in 1960 or later, full retirement age is 67. These figures are established by the Social Security Administration and are set in federal law under the Senior Citizens Freedom to Work Act of 2000, which completed the gradual increase in full retirement age that had begun with the Social Security Amendments of 1983. If you claim your Social Security retirement benefit at exactly age 62, the Social Security Administration permanently reduces your monthly benefit amount. The size of that reduction depends on how many months before your full retirement age you begin claiming. For a worker whose full retirement age is 67, claiming at 62 means claiming 60 months early. The Social Security Administration reduces benefits by 0.5% for each of the first 36 months before full retirement age, and by 0.5% for each additional month beyond that. When you calculate this out for someone claiming 60 months early, the total permanent reduction comes to approximately 30%. That reduction is not temporary. It does not phase out or disappear once you reach your full retirement age. Once you lock in your benefit at the early eligibility age, that reduced amount becomes your permanent baseline for the remainder of your life, subject only to cost of living adjustments applied to that reduced amount. To make this concrete, consider a worker whose calculated Social Security benefit at full retirement age of 67 would be $2,000 per month. If that worker claims at age 62 instead, the permanent 30% reduction brings the monthly benefit down to $1,400. That is a difference of $600 per month. Over the course of a year, that is $7,200 less in Social Security income. Over a 20-year retirement, that gap amounts to $144,000 in lost cumulative benefits, before accounting for the compounding effect of cost of living adjustments applied to the smaller base amount. These figures are not projections or estimates. They reflect the Social Security Administration's own published benefit reduction formulas. The cost of living adjustment issue deserves separate attention. Each year, the Social Security Administration typically adjusts benefit amounts to reflect changes in the Consumer Price Index. This adjustment is meant to help benefits keep pace with inflation over time. However, the annual cost of living adjustment is applied as a percentage of your current benefit amount. If your benefit has already been permanently reduced by 30%, then every cost of living adjustment you receive going forward is being applied to that smaller base. In a retirement that may last 25 to 30 years, this compounding effect can produce a meaningful and growing gap between what an early claimant receives and what a full retirement age claimant would have received under the same economic conditions. Inflation erodes purchasing power over time. A smaller benefit, growing at the same rate as a larger benefit, will always fall further and further behind in absolute dollar terms. There is also an important consideration for married couples. The Social Security Administration allows a surviving spouse to claim a survivor benefit based on the deceased spouse's benefit record. If the higher-earning spouse claims early and permanently reduces their benefit, that reduced amount becomes the ceiling on the survivor benefit available to the remaining spouse. This means that claiming early does not only affect the individual retiree, it potentially reduces the financial resources available to a surviving spouse for the remainder of their life. For households where one spouse is the substantially higher earner, this is a significant long-term planning consideration. The second major financial challenge in retiring at 62 involves health insurance coverage. And this is the issue that catches a large number of early retirees completely off guard. Medicare, the federal health insurance program for Americans aged 65 and older, does not begin until age 65. This is established by Title 18 of the Social Security Act. There is no provision in federal law that allows a worker to access Medicare before age 65 simply because they have retired. Choosing to leave the workforce at 62 means losing access to employer-sponsored health insurance while also being ineligible for Medicare for 3 full years. This 3-year period, from age 62 to age 65, represents a serious financial exposure. Health insurance for individuals in their early 60s, purchased on the individual market, is among the most expensive in the country. According to data published by the Kaiser Family Foundation and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, a 62-year-old purchasing a mid-level benchmark plan through the Affordable Care Act marketplace can expect to pay premiums in the range of $700 to over $1,000 per month as an individual, before any income-based subsidies. For a married couple of similar age, combined premiums can easily reach $1,500 to $2,000 per month or more, depending on location, plan type, and income level. Across 3 years, that represents a potential out-of-pocket cost exceeding $70,000 for premiums alone, not including deductibles, co-payments, and prescription drug expenses. This is not a minor budget line item. For someone who has recently left the workforce and is drawing down savings to fund their retirement, a $70,000 insurance expense in the first 3 years of retirement can have a substantial impact on the long-term trajectory of their retirement portfolio. Withdrawing a large sum early in retirement, particularly during a period when investment markets may be declining, accelerates the depletion of savings in ways that can be difficult or impossible to recover from later. There are several legitimate options for managing this coverage gap. The first is continuation coverage under the Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1985, commonly known as COBRA. Under COBRA, a departing employee may elect to continue their employer-sponsored group health insurance for a limited period. Federal law requires that COBRA coverage be made available for a maximum of 18 months in most circumstances for employees who leave their jobs. However, the cost is significant. Under COBRA, the former employee must pay the full premium that was previously split between the employer and the employee, plus an administrative fee of up to 2%. For many workers, employer contributions cover 70% or more of the premium, meaning COBRA can be 2 to 3 times more expensive than what the worker was paying while employed. COBRA is a bridge option, but at 18 months of maximum coverage, it does not span the full 3-year gap to Medicare eligibility. The second option is the Affordable Care Act marketplace, established under the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act of 2010. The marketplace offers individual and family health insurance plans at various coverage tiers, with premium tax credits available to households whose income falls within certain thresholds based on the federal poverty level. For early retirees whose taxable income is relatively low because they are living on savings rather than distributions from traditional retirement accounts, the income-based subsidies available through the marketplace can significantly reduce premium costs. Managing the composition of retirement income during the pre-Medicare years requires careful planning, but it can produce meaningful savings on health insurance costs for those who approach it strategically. A third option involves part-time employment specifically for the purpose of accessing employer-sponsored health benefits. Some employers extend health insurance coverage to part-time employees who work a minimum number of hours per week. A worker who has left a full-time career but takes a part-time position with benefits can bridge the Medicare gap while maintaining a degree of flexibility and a supplemental income stream. The fourth option applies to married couples where one spouse remains in the workforce. Joining a working spouse's employer health plan is often the most cost-effective solution to the coverage gap, provided that option is available. It requires no additional cost beyond whatever the employee contribution is under the working spouse's plan. Whichever approach is taken, the critical point is that this gap must be addressed with a concrete plan before making a final retirement decision. Entering the 3-year pre-Medicare window without a clear and funded strategy for health coverage is one of the most common and consequential financial mistakes early retirees make. The third major consideration involves the structure of your overall retirement budget, particularly how it interacts with debt obligations and the long-term reality of inflation. Carrying significant debt into early retirement, particularly a mortgage, fundamentally changes the income requirements of retirement. For most American homeowners, the monthly housing payment is the largest single expense in their budget. If you retire at age 62 with a mortgage still outstanding, you must generate sufficient monthly income to cover that payment in addition to all other living expenses. This increases the amount you must withdraw from savings and Social Security each month. In contrast, if you enter retirement debt-free and with your mortgage fully paid, your minimum monthly income requirement drops substantially. This reduced requirement makes a smaller Social Security benefit far more manageable and reduces the pressure on retirement savings to generate high distributions. A paid-off home does not generate income in a traditional sense, but it eliminates one of the largest recurring expenses in a retirement budget. For many households, eliminating the mortgage payment can offset a significant portion of the Social Security benefit reduction that comes with claiming at 62. This is why many financial planning professionals identify paying off the mortgage before retirement as one of the highest priority financial goals for workers approaching early retirement. Inflation is a separate but equally important concern for anyone retiring at 62. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the long-term average annual inflation rate in the United States has historically run in the range of 2 to 3%. For a retiree entering retirement at 62, with a projected 25 to 30-year retirement horizon, this means that the purchasing power of a fixed dollar amount of income will be cut roughly in half over the course of their retirement, even at historically moderate inflation rates. What costs $100 at age 62 may cost $180 or more by age 82 under standard historical inflation assumptions. A retirement income plan that is tightly calibrated at age 62 may face significant strain 15 or 20 years later if it has not accounted adequately for this erosion of purchasing power. This connects directly to the question of how aggressively retirement savings are drawn down in the early years. Because Social Security benefits are permanently reduced for early claimants, the gap between total income needed and Social Security income received must be filled by drawing from savings, investment accounts, pensions, or other sources. The larger that gap, the faster the portfolio is drawn down. In years when investment returns are poor, this creates what financial researchers describe as sequence of returns risk. If a retiree is forced to sell investments at reduced values during a market downturn simply to cover monthly living expenses, the portfolio loses its opportunity to recover when markets eventually improve. Research on retirement income sustainability consistently identifies the sequence of investment returns in the early years of retirement as one of the most significant factors in determining whether a retirement portfolio lasts for the full duration of retirement. For early retirees with a longer time horizon and a reduced Social Security benefit, this risk is amplified. None of these factors makes retiring at 62 impossible. Many people do it successfully. But they succeed because they planned specifically for these obstacles, not despite them. The practical question for any individual approaching this decision is not really whether 62 is a good retirement age in the abstract. The real question is whether their personal financial situation is structured in a way that allows 62 to work for them specifically. The answer to that question comes from evaluating a small number of concrete financial benchmarks. One useful exercise before making a final retirement decision is to conduct what might be called a trial retirement. This involves calculating what your actual monthly income would look like at age 62, using your projected reduced Social Security benefit and a conservative estimate of how much you can safely withdraw from savings each month without depleting your portfolio prematurely. Then, attempt to live on that projected income for a period of 3 to 6 months while still employed. Any remaining paycheck above that target amount goes directly into savings during the trial period. If the trial period reveals that the projected income is adequate and the budget is manageable, that is meaningful and concrete evidence in favor of the decision. If the trial period reveals that the budget is too tight or that the lifestyle adjustments required are more significant than anticipated, that is equally important and actionable information that is far better discovered before leaving the workforce than after. Beyond this trial exercise, there are 3 specific financial questions that serve as the most reliable indicators of retirement readiness for someone targeting age 62. The first question is whether health insurance coverage is fully funded for the entire period from age 62 to age 65. This means having a specific, concrete plan in place before retirement begins, not a general intention to figure it out later. Whether the plan involves COBRA for a portion of the gap, marketplace coverage with or without subsidies, part-time employment with benefits, or a working spouse's plan, the coverage must be identified, the cost must be known, and the funds to cover it must be accounted for in the retirement budget. The second question is whether all high-interest consumer debt and, ideally, the mortgage are fully paid off before retirement begins. Entering retirement carrying significant debt increases monthly income requirements and reduces the financial flexibility available to handle unexpected expenses or market downturns. Eliminating these obligations before stepping away from employment is one of the most effective ways to reduce the income that a retirement portfolio must generate. The third question is whether retirement savings are sufficient to sustain the desired lifestyle for the full projected duration of retirement, even accounting for the permanently reduced Social Security benefit. This calculation needs to reflect realistic assumptions about investment returns, inflation, longevity, and healthcare costs. The standard industry guidance on safe withdrawal rates, derived from research including the widely referenced Trinity study, suggests that a withdrawal rate of approximately 4% of an initial portfolio balance per year has historically supported a 30-year retirement in most market conditions. For a retirement that begins at 62 and may last 35 years or more, some financial researchers suggest using a more conservative withdrawal rate. The specific rate appropriate for any individual depends on their portfolio composition, risk tolerance, and flexibility to adjust spending. These are decisions that benefit significantly from consultation with a qualified financial planning professional. If all 3 of these questions can be answered affirmatively with specific and accurate financial information, the evidence suggests that a retirement at age 62 is financially supportable. If any of these questions cannot be answered with confidence, that indicates specific gaps in the plan that should be addressed before making a final decision. The decision about when to retire is one of the most significant financial decisions a person will make. It has implications that extend across the full remaining lifespan. The factors involved are personal and specific to each individual's health, savings, household structure, spending patterns, and priorities. No general recommendation applies universally. What the data and the structure of the financial system clearly show is that retiring at 62 is achievable, but it requires specific preparation and planning around the Social Security early claiming penalty, the pre-Medicare health insurance gap, debt levels at retirement, inflation exposure over a long retirement horizon, and the risk of drawing down savings too aggressively in the early years. Workers who understand each of these factors and plan specifically around them are in a fundamentally different position than workers who simply wait to reach 62 and assume everything will work itself out. The difference between those two approaches is not a matter of luck. It is a matter of information and preparation. The financial system has real and specific structures built into it. Understanding those structures clearly is the foundation of any retirement plan that is going to hold up over time.